Silence their cell phones and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, tonight we do not have any proclamations. We have a couple items on our consent agenda, and I think what we'll do is, that we want to highlight, I think what we'll do is go ahead and vote on the consent agenda first, and then we're going to highlight items H1 and H2. So do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Is there anyone wishing to comment on the motion to approve the consent agenda? All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Do I have Linda Giltz and Dana Davis here? Do you all want, you're going to come up, right?
While they're coming up, can I just ask, on our vision that we just adopted, what has happened to those list of priorities?
The 36?
They're going to come forward during our work session on the 8th, is my understanding.
Okay.
Are we waiting on anyone else?
I think not.
No?
You said we should go ahead.
Okay. I'm going to come down there with you.
Okay, can I say a couple words?
Yes, three.
I'm Linda Giltz, I'm this way.
No, okay.
Okay, this way. All right, well, I'm really thrilled to be here. I'm on the board of Friends of Connect Buncombe, and we are honored to present a donation of $15,000 to the city of Asheville to help fund the East Asheville Greenway Feasibility Study. The funds were raised through our partnership with local breweries, through in the Brewing for Greenways program. And this program was started by Highland Brewery and New Belgium Brewery, and it's only been going for a little over 6 months, but we're close to raising that $15,000, so we're about ready to be able to make that donation to you. It's an ongoing program that the breweries are leading, and it's a way for them to support Greenways, and they wanted to find a way that they could contribute and collaborate, and we're just really excited about that. We also greatly appreciate the support from city staff and from the Asheville Greenway Committee. They've been great partners with us. And I just wanted to tell you that the mission of our group, in case you don't know, is to encourage and support the implementation of the Buncombe County Parks and Greenways Master Plan, and to help with construction of greenways throughout Buncombe County through public awareness, community education, and fundraising. So thanks so much for the opportunity to share this with you today. And I'd like to ask up Oscar Wong from Highland. You were such an instrumental partner in this. Thanks so much.
Actually, the credit should go to my daughter, who actually initiated this whole idea. This is a little bit above and beyond my realm. I just make beer.
Really good beer.
Where would you like to have us? Here, all right. Wow. It's a lot of money. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Great.
Hopefully the first of many.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that, and thank you for all your hard work. We have one presentation tonight. And Vidila Satvika is going to give us a presentation on reducing barriers for infill housing.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of council, members of the public, my name is Vidila Satvika with the Department of Planning and Urban Design. This is a quick presentation to run you through what our department is thinking about for proposed wording amendments to the UDO to allow for reducing barriers for small-scale infill housing. As you all know, here are a few bullets of the current state of affairs for housing in Asheville. Our population is quickly growing. We're at nearly 90,000 people. The supply of housing is limited. We have a very tight housing market, less than 1% vacancy for rentals, and that for-sale units are on the rise. There was a correction here. You can see the strikeout in the earlier report you received showed 25% of renters as cost burden. That number is actually 25% cost burden owners in Asheville. The renter number is 43%, which is really high. It's close to what Detroit sees. Of course, the history is very different, but very high number of cost burden households paying a large percentage of their incomes for housing. City goals, multiple city goals line up and ask the department to look at ways to provide more infill housing. And we believe there are UDO changes, and for people who don't understand wording amendments, we're basically talking about changes to the city's rules to permit more flexibility for small-scale property owners and small-scale developers to do infill projects. So this slide shows a little bit of what is becoming aware in a lot of planning circles, what is being called a missing middle. Before the 1950s, housing was much more varied than it is today in our residential districts. On the far left, you see single-family detached homes. On the far right, you see mid-rise and higher apartments, which is kind of what we have now. A lot of single-family districts with single-family homes, and then apartment complexes in downtown or in other areas zoned for them. We're missing a large part of triplexes, duplexes, quads, and smaller apartment buildings mixed in with our housing, and that's partially due to the rise of automobiles and planning, just the planning practice that changed in the last 50 years. And we believe that we can take a look at that and see how we potentially can go back to a form where more varied housing options are permitted. So what are we proposing for you to look at today and to give us guidance to move forward? We have a series of, what do we have here? 7 proposed changes. 3 of them actually are new wording amendments to the text. So let's kind of go into them in a little bit of more detail. One would amend an existing ordinance for cottage developments. This is a rule that allows the cluster of homes on one parcel to have more of a community feel. Typically, they share the open space for gardening or something like that. And we could review issues of the lot size. There's currently a 1,000-foot separation requirement between these developments. The earlier thought was that we wouldn't want too many of them. We've only had 6 in the last 6 years. So, that's something that we can look at. Potentially the number of units in these districts and where they're permitted. Multifamily review. Currently the UDO states that there's a number of units permitted per parcel's area. So in this slide, we're trying to show that if you were in a district like an RM8 district, which is pretty typical and where we have quite a few lots in this district, where you have a 5,000 square foot minimum lot area, and let's say you have 2 of those parcels, or you have a 10,000 square foot site, you could, under today's rules, subdivide that to have 2 separate parcels, each with 1 single-family home and potentially an accessory dwelling unit, so you almost get 4 units out of it, or you can have a duplex, which, anybody really would choose a single-family option. You get more, and it's a product that most people know and understand, and that's why we have a lack of multifamily options and not an efficient use of land. So for this review, we would look at why people aren't building these, and looking back to the historic reference of the 1948 Asheville Code, we actually learned, really interestingly, that multifamily units were allowed in all residential districts. And you could build a lot more of them without having to double your square footage. You wouldn't need 10,000 square feet to build two. You would only need an extra 500 square feet of area to build an additional unit. And we're not saying that we should go back to that, but the point is that Asheville's history included a lot more flexibility for multifamily housing in the 40s than it does today. We could look at the lot standards. There are rules that govern how wide the lot needs to be, minimum lot widths, the lot area, and it's a very one-size-fits-all approach that in many cases doesn't work. Some lots begin really narrow and then they end wide in the back, or vice versa. We get calls all the time where somebody wants to subdivide to build another unit and they're 2 feet short, or something is strange about their lot that is inflexible. So we believe there are other ways to provide more flexibility. Tiny house issues are big recently. A lot of people are talking about tiny homes. The thing is, currently anybody can build a tiny home on a foundation in Asheville. It's permitted. You can buy a lot and build a 300 square foot home. There's no problem with that. The issue is that we have minimum standards for the lot size, and land is a huge part of the cost of housing. So you're required to have a minimum 5,000 square foot site, regardless of whether you're building a 4,000 square foot home or a 300 square foot home. So we think there's some potential to look at potential overlay zones where we allow the lot size and the lot width standards to come down a little bit if your house comes down proportionally too. And there's a large market of people who want to live with less. They don't want to have as much area. 2 more, or 3 more here. One issue is looking at a higher density residential zone as a transition zone between higher intensity uses like industrial or manufacturing and residential districts. We do have an RM16 district, which allows some bit of higher density, but not much. And especially in places close to the CBD, we really, it would be nice to have this tool, because typically what we have to do is just go straight to a conditional zoning. But we would like to have a higher density transition corridor district. The conservation development idea is a tool that would allow developers to protect open space and natural resources. Currently, if a developer buys a piece of land or owns a piece of land and there's some beautiful trees on it, they really don't have any mechanism to protect those trees. A conservation development would allow them to flex the standards for their lot sizes if they put the open space together as a public, in perpetuity, open space that is protected. And that could be for open space purposes, it could be for natural features. It would just basically give more flexibility for developers who have an interest in doing the right thing on the right property. And the sustainability bonus, this is the last proposal. This is an ordinance that's on the books today that hasn't been used. It really has a lot in it that I think makes it unviable. You're required to have affordable housing. You're required to have green standards. You're required to be certain distance to transit corridors, and perhaps that's why it hasn't been used. So we propose to look at that. And I'll say, though, that all of the proposals that we're talking about are really sustainable because we're looking at infill development. Any infill development is leading to a community that is more walkable, that makes it more viable to have transit, and that uses land much more efficiently. So don't think that this is our only sort of sustainable ordinance that we're talking about. So what are we proposing as the next steps? We would, with your guidance, draft some considerations to flesh out more of these potential ordinances, develop an implementation schedule for how this would work, and go through all the committees and the public process, and develop a communication plan with our communications outreach office to move forward. Thank you. That concludes my presentation.
Are there any questions?
Just vanilla. Question. I got a couple emails this afternoon that ask if we were proposing to change our steep slope ordinances.
No.
Thank
we,
you.
We believe that that's something that definitely should not change. It's for protecting watersheds. It's really important. We don't want to go there.
Okay. I got some emails this afternoon, and I said, I don't think that that's what they were saying, but I will check.
Yeah, no, we don't want to make any changes to those.
Okay. Thank you.
I just want to thank you and Todd and the rest of the staff for looking into this. It's a great set of tools, and I don't know if we need to say yes, go forward and do this, but I would certainly be in favor of that. We know all of the reasons that we need to do this, and it's great to see that we're exploring some of these. So thanks.
This is a question that may be more fine-grained than is needed at this point, but I noticed you mentioned that we've had 6 cottage developments in the time since 2007, I believe. 6
permitted. They haven't even all been constructed.
And I wondered if the distance between regulation has affected, have there been those who wanted to do them, but that the spacing has limited that or not? I mean,
There may have been. That's probably not the biggest hurdle. But if we're looking at reviewing those standards, we probably would want to look at that anyway, just to consider whether or not it's really appropriate.
And it also seemed to me that there might be some way to merge cottage and tiny houses. I mean, tiny cottages, you could get more on the same footprint.
So those that will require an amendment will go through P&Z?
Yeah, they would all go through P&Z and then to the council.
And so we can expect that to happen at this point?
Yeah, we would first develop the whole implementation plan and communication and outreach, and then we, presumably go through a public process, then come through committee, and then to P&Z and back to council.
Okay, great. Are there questions down here? Anybody?
Just a couple of comments. When council set the affordable housing goals last year, and we made it clear that the need for new affordable housing units in the city was about 5,400 over the next 5 years. And that with all the tools that we had at the time, and all of the money that we're putting towards that, we were only going to be able to achieve about half of that, of affordable units either created or supported with our existing tools and partners and other resources. And at the time, what we determined that we needed was more partners, more tools, more resources, and this brings more tools to the table. And so it gives me heart that we can come closer to meeting that really broad need. And this is something that I brought up a lot. I wasn't aware of the 1948 plan, but if you go around Montford and you look at places that are 90 years old, or 80 years old, you see a lot of the multifamily in our historic neighborhoods. There's a long heritage of a lot of different housing types in neighborhoods across the city, and I'm glad that we're going to be able to bring back that housing choice heritage that we have.
I like that, housing choice heritage. All right, that's a good one. Anyone else?
I just had a question. Actually, is this sort of the full suite of strategies that you've decided to pursue, or are there others that you're still exploring and you might bring to us later that get to these same goals?
These are the proposals that we've sort of been cooking or have been somehow brought to our attention most and have sort of risen to the surface. I believe we may have some other considerations, but if we're talking about 2016, we think that probably 4 of these might be realistic, giving enough time for the public to really weigh in and to go through enough of a process that we think everybody is heard and has the time to weigh in.
And these are also the sort of zoning-related tools. There may be others that are not, within the planning department. Okay, all right, thank
you.
you. That concludes our council meeting for this evening.
21 minutes.
That's
How'd we
20,
do?
we didn't, yeah. No, we got to do, I have 3 people that are signed up, 4 people that are signed up to speak. And the first one is Jeff, and I'm not going to say your last name right? Kaminsky. During our public comment period, you have 3 minutes to speak. Please watch the lights on the lectern. They will let you know green means go, orange means you have 30 seconds, and red means stop, and it will beep at you.
Is this going to work for me? This. Can we switch to this?
And if you would just state your name so we can say it correctly.
Okay. My name is Jeff Kemish. I live in the Old Sky Club. I'm here on behalf of the half-dozen families who are my neighbors. We've tried to raise our concerns about Bowcatcher Greenway with the Greenways Committee, the Multimodal Transportation Commission, and the Recreation Advisory Board. I'm still here. We all know what a greenway is supposed to look like. Probably not that. This is a stretch of South Beaumont Street. The Bowcatcher Greenway plans, as they currently are, have the pedestrian part of the greenway going around here and put cyclists on the road. The people in the house down at the end here have a concrete wall, 3 foot tall, 9 inches deep, thick, to stop slow, out of control vehicles from sliding into their house. According to the latest plans, that's going away. This is a stretch of road that has the potential to brand Asheville as the only city where you can get crushed by a truck while you're walking on a greenway. I'm regularly told that living on a greenway puts up your property prices. The problem is, when I look around, I see greenways crossing people's driveways. What this plan is going to do is to convert our driveway here into a greenway. The safety problem here is that the division between our driveway and the greenway runs around here. There's a wooden barrier. It takes away our ability to use this verge to dodge oncoming vehicles, and so it turns our driveway, which as you can see has blind corners, into a one-way street. These and other problems are the result of a decision that was made at the end of 2014, rather than any incompetence anywhere. The project was originally supposed to cost less than $1 million. A year ago, the alternative routes for the northern half of the Greenway were priced between $250,000 and $3.5 million. By the end of last year, the press was telling us it was nearly $4 million. The cheapest alternative was the one that valued our property, our privacy, and our security at zero, and made the mistaken assumption that we would meekly accept this. Estimates for all the other routes acknowledge that property acquisition is not normally free. The larger source of bias in the decision is the fact it was based on one-off building costs. Any route that forces people to walk or cycle around this corner.
If you have written comments, you can pass them to
I do.
the clerk, and we will be glad to look at them.
Okay.
Oh, good, they're typed out. Yes. Gary, do you want to say something about that?
We'll have to look at the information he's provided.
I thought you
We've
were.
shared quite a bit of information with council, but there may be new questions that have been brought up. We'd like to take a look at the material he's provided you tonight.
The chair of the tree commission and I'm liaison to the tree commission, joined him and some other neighbors to tour a couple of stretches of Bowcatcher, and I've raised questions about it. I think that we really need to think hard about the design going forward. I'll leave it at that for right now.
Thank you. The second person I have signed up to speak is Teal Brown.
Hi there, thank you. I'm here simply just to show my support of Vadilla's presentation today. My company is Wishbone Tiny Homes. Clearly that's our job in this town, is to build tiny homes for that market. There are a lot of infill lots in town that are either below the 5,000 square foot minimum or an odd shape that aren't very buildable per the regular setbacks and standards. And I think some of Vadilla's proposal would allow for smaller lots to be considered for single-family tiny homes. I know this isn't the most direct way to address the density issue in Asheville, but it is a piece of the puzzle, I believe, especially for those lots that otherwise wouldn't be able to do a multifamily or something with more density. And there are a lot of people who want to have the propriety of a single home in this town, but don't want a bigger home. So simply here to say thank you to Vadilla and also to you for hearing me out. And when it comes time to make a decision on that, I hope you keep that in mind. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Phyllis Pedersen. Oh,
You had a presentation tonight about infilling in small homes. It all sounds wonderful and marvelous. I will tell you the story of one house, though, that was affected by an infilling. Everyone knows this is a beautiful state, and with the topography, the steep slopes, you have a number of employees for the city of Asheville that work on stormwater remediation so that it doesn't destroy your city. But when you have an infilled house that doesn't have any obligation to mind the water that previously went into where that house now sits, that water runs off. There are no rules, no regulations in the building code for minding that water. My daughter owns a 100-year-old house that now has a wet basement. Her retaining wall is collapsing. The dirt is now eroding because there is no remediation for the water that once went right into the ground. That house has a certificate of occupancy. There are people living there. Nobody can go back to them and request legally that they do anything about their wastewater from the rain. That puts the burden on the long-term owner of a house in the city of Asheville to remediate the water that wasn't their fault. So I'm asking you to consider putting in place, when you are putting in these small houses, a number of more regulations to concern where that water is going to go. Because right now, her neighbor's pipe that collects all that water ends at his property. And my daughter's house is lower grade than his. It's only a house of one, but the topography in Asheville is sloped like that. So his water flows into her yard and into her basement. And now there are cracks in her walls of a 100-year-old house, and you know how difficult that is to fix. So I'm asking, please, consider putting in some regulations for getting rid of that water that no longer can go where it used to. I do have one other thing, and it's on that paper.
yes, about buses.
Yes, my grandson is very involved in this election, and he has asked, please, if his grandmother will ask, my daughter's ill, if his grandmother will ask that the buses be free on election day so the poorer residents can get to the polling place.
So I was asking Julie about this. Has that been discussed before?
I think, Gordon, I feel like you just brought it up earlier this year, didn't you?
Mm-hmm. At our last meeting.
It's never come up before that, but it's.
Is it something the Transit or Multimodal Commission would
I think
be
they
appropriate?
should talk about that.
They have a meeting tomorrow.
They have a meeting tomorrow. Okay.
Oh,
Can you,
but-
will you, are you going to? I think. Okay.
This,
when-
there was the last time we met, there was an indication among council members that there was an interest in having fare-free days on election days for just the purpose that you stated.
Wonderful. How will you notify the public?
Well,
Step
way
one is
forward.
to see if we can get it approved. And step two is, I'm not sure.
and it sounds like the vice mayor is going to the multimodal commission meeting tomorrow, and we'll mention this request to them and see if they would recommend approval of that.
And maybe one thing we can do to actually incentivize people to vote is if you have your I voted sticker, you get on for free, as opposed to just everybody gets on for free all day long.
But if you're supposed to go vote.
It's to go get you.
It's to go
Then
vote. You gotta go get your sticker.
So it's,
Okay.
maybe it's a one-time.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, Brew Davis.
I'm not exact, is there a, to hook this up?
Is that
I can
possible?
probably just do
That
that.
works.
Whoa, okay.
Sorry. Well, that just proves, is a testament to what I was going to say, which is that I'm a city council virgin, so forgive me. My only experience with things like this so far has been watching Parks and Rec on television.
That is actually pretty
yeah,
good
that'd be
training
great.
for this.
What's that?
That's actually pretty good training.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So my name is Brew Davis. I live on Hildebrand Street, which is right over here. And just for a frame of reference, City Hall and where we are is in here somewhere. And so we live on Hildebrand right here. And as you probably know, the BB&T building has been constructed right here, and the Hilton Garden Inn is going up right here. We have a 3-year-old daughter, and I hope no one in here knows us, but my wife is pregnant, and nobody, if you know us, don't say that to our parents because they don't know yet.
And nobody watches
Don't
this.
worry, it will be top secret here.
Oh yeah, it's on
All
C-SPAN or
just between
something.
us.
Oh gosh, darn it.
You know this is televised, right?
Yeah, can we
Okay.
delete that part?
All 3 viewers.
Yeah, but the point is, we have a 3-year-old daughter and I have a pregnant wife at home, and I'm just coming to, and I actually called Julie and spoke to her a couple weeks ago, but just wanted to express my concern at the balance or the imbalance between economic progress and peace and quiet for citizens, because we, as you can see, live in close proximity to the Hilton Garden Inn, and over the course of the last 12 months or so, there's been ongoing construction, and really it hasn't been a problem until the last few months when they've apparently gotten an after-hours permit. Technically, the noise ordinance says that they're allowed to work until 11 p.m., and that, if you can see down here, it says daytime hours, 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. I don't know, there might be some reasons construction-wise that I'm unaware of, but to me, 11 p.m. doesn't seem like daytime, and when you have a 3-year-old daughter at home, you know that it's not daytime. So I guess my first hope is that it could be considered or that you could consider maybe moving that closer to an actual daytime hour, maybe like 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And I guess the second question is, we've been woken up, my daughter trying to put her down at 8:30. There was jackhammering at 8:30 at night within close proximity, probably 75 to 100 yards of where we live. Jackhammering at 8:30, leaf blowing. I don't even know why they were leaf blowing. I think they were blowing dust away from their construction site at 11:30 at night, and then bulldozing at 3 a.m. And the bulldozing woke us up. All 3 of those, we called the police, and I asked about the noise ordinance, and it's very unclear. It's a very ambiguous noise ordinance, and I spoke to a fellow in the permitting office, and he explained that that's by design. I just hope that that can be reconsidered, and that if people live in close proximity to a business commercial district, that there could be some buffer for those of us residents who live, within a couple hundred yards. So, thanks.
Thanks. The last person I have signed up to speak is Kelly Palmatier.
Maybe Maybe while she's coming up, Gary, is it, we allow people to build things at 3:30 in the morning? This happens? Is there this nighttime permit thing?
I'm not aware of it.
It's an after-hours permit.
Or after-hours
It
permit?
sounds like, it's the permitting office for the city, but then it also, in CDOT got involved because they were doing some electrical work on the road and they had to do it.
Can we look into it and then
Yeah,
have, because you have contact information and have it researched? I mean, I am 10 feet away from the new McKibben Hotel going in next to us, and those guys start at 8 and finish at 5:30, and that is it.
Yeah.
So I haven't had this experience, but I'm sure it exists, so
Probably not.
We can look into that. That'd be great.
All right, okay, Kelly, and your last name?
My last name is Palmetier. I'm
Oh.
Kelly Palmetier.
Okay, thank you.
And I live right in Asheville, and I am an active member of Asheville's Tiny Home Association, which is a very vibrant, active group with a growing membership. And so I wanted to hear the presentation tonight, and now that I've heard everything that was laid forth, I wanted to speak out and say that I fully support the presentation, and I thank you all for giving it the consideration that it's due. From my conversations with the other members of the Tiny Home Association, I can tell you that the cottage development, the multifamily proposal, the tiny house zoning, these are all things that would be very well received by the members of our group. And then in addition to that, I happen to be very interested in purchasing a small lot near downtown that is just under 5,000 square feet. And of course, with the current regulations, I would not be able to build a house on that. But when I look into it, at a tenth of an acre, we're looking at 4,356 square feet. Even if we did the full setback of 35 feet from the road and a full setback of 25 feet from the back, plus 10 feet from the sides, we're looking at over 1,200 square feet of usable space. Now, I, of course, am a big proponent of tiny homes. If you're looking at tiny homes, you can easily get a well-planned tiny home in much, much less than 1,200 square feet. So if you're looking to solve the affordable housing crisis and the home availability crisis here, the proposal that was made earlier tonight will definitely help with that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, those are the folks I have signed up to speak, but if anyone else would like to speak, this is an opportunity. Just raise your hand. Okay, and so I don't have anyone else who wants to speak, and we do not have a closed session tonight. We did not break our record of our fastest meeting, but we continue to strive to do that. So the meeting is adjourned.